Great, fantastic. And like I say, there'll be a link to the South East Sydney Local Health District YouTube channel where you'll be able to look at the previous recordings. So happy for you to use the chat function if you want to talk to us at all, and we'll have that up there. Jules is on tech today, so she'll be keeping an eye on the chat. And also to pull yourselves off mute whenever you want to speak to us, or use the the reactions if you want to talk as well, or we'll just ask you to keep yourselves on mute whilst other people are talking, just because of the background noise. But we really do, like I say, want you to be able to be part of this, experience the tools and the resources, and really get some discussion going during this webinar. Right. So next slide then, please, Jules. So we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on whose beautiful land we stand today. We'd like to pay our respects to the elders past, present and future, and any Aboriginal colleagues that we have with us here today. So Jules, Louise and I are in Darawal. We're down in the basement of the Sutherland Hospital, next to the kitchens and close to the mortuary down here. So we're saying hello from there. So it'd be really great to find out where you're from. We've got a small group, so maybe we can find out where you're from. Travis?
Well, I'm in Darlinghurst, so Gadigal land, people of the Eora Nation.
Yeah.
I'm not in a kitchen though, or down in a dungeon anywhere. I know Jules has an office without a window, but I can see nice blue sky at the moment.
Oh, fantastic. Fabulous.
Just rubbing it in, Jules.
Thanks, Trev. I wonder how often I whinge about that everyone knows that about me.
Janelle, whereabouts are you from?
I'm from the Royal Hospital for Women, and I'm just across the hallway from Sarah there at the moment. So, yes, so yeah, I work in infection prevention. Excuse me.
Fantastic. And Sarah, whereabouts are you? Just across the hall.
I'm at the Royal as well with Janelle, and I work in lactation services on level 3.
Fantastic. And Lisa?
Oh, hi. I'm at Prince of Wales Cardiothoracic ICU, level 3, and also have an office with no windows.
And we just got Kim joining us as well there as well.
Hello, sorry for the lateness. I just had to go and grab some lunch.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Day.
Yeah, whereabouts are you from, Kim?
Prince of Wales Community Health with the Transitional Aged Care team.
Great, fantastic. Okay, so just a small group, which is lovely. And that image that we can see here on the screen shows South East Sydney Local Health District. So some of the facilities that you're calling in from are on there on the screen. So that's a lovely image there by Brendan Broadbent, whose mum, Margaret, works for South East Sydney Local Health District. So that's a lovely image that we've got there. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
The next slide, please, Jules. So you've all introduced yourselves a little, so that's great. Lovely to see you all. We're going to share this resource now, which is called Picture Knowing Me. So with all of these resources of Appreciative Inquiry, we're going to so with all of these webinars, around Appreciative Inquiry, we're going to introduce some tools. So this is a tool to kind of bring us into the space today, and it's called Picture Knowing Me. So in a moment, we're going to invite you to share. You're looking at the pictures and use them as a prompt to share a little bit about yourself. So these are by Belinda Dewar, and Louise is going to talk to you a little bit more about Belinda Dewar and the tools that she has got, which are resources for practice that we'll be able to share with you. So I suppose with all of these things, when you're using them, have a think about, because we all work in different places, how you might want to use them within your work context and what they can make possible. So for me, I'm going to introduce myself again and say where I work, and then I'm going to share using one of the prompts that's on the screen, and then I'm going to flick to Louise, and then she'll do the same, and we'll move around the group in that way. So my name's Ali Fowler. I'm in the District Nursing and Midwifery Office, and I'm a nurse manager for quality and culture. And a place of importance for me is, I don't know whether you can tell by my accent, but I'm from Yorkshire. And I moved here about 20 years ago, and I was so happy to move away when I did go. But I think as I'm getting older, I'm starting to realise that that really does is a really lovely place, a special place in my heart. So that's Yorkshire. And when I see it on the TV now and all of that, you know, it really speaks to me. So that's a little about me. So Louise, I might pass to you.
Hi everyone. I think I know most people on, but for those of you that don't know me, my name is Louise Connolly, and I'm currently working in the Nurse Midwifery Practice and Workforce Unit in the role of midwife mentor facilitator. So really what that is rolling out a mentorship program for midwives at the moment. Had previously worked in the team for about 4 years in the same roles as Jules and Ali. And then it was really lovely to come back in after about a year away. So for me, I was just thinking what was jumping out to me, but really it's what helps me to feel comfy. And it's a bit random, but I was cleaning out a cupboard the other day and I found so many pairs of high heels. And I realized what helps me to feel comfy is not wearing high heels, is flat shoes. And I realized how much for years and years and years I always, had all these heels and dresses and all of that sort of stuff. And now nothing beats me in my comfy shoes, my flip flops. I barely wear a full shoe the whole summer. So yeah, I guess it's just about being comfortable and nothing. I don't like anything that makes anything too difficult, and that is also walking. I'll throw to Jules.
Thanks, Lou. So hi, everyone. I'm Jules. I also work in the same team. I won't repeat it. My role's nurse manager for quality and cultural initiatives as well. I'm thinking hidden talents. I've got quite an eclectic taste in music, and one of my hidden talents is useless talent, but I know a lot of the words of a lot of rap songs. So if you get, actually, I don't even need a couple of drinks in me, just if it comes in as I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, might come out, might bust a little rap.
I wanna
Useless
see that,
talent,
Jules.
well, most people have. Will I throw to someone? Will I throw to Sarah, maybe? Hi, Sarah. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. I was going to go hidden talents as well, actually. Have I frozen? No, I'm good. I'm actually a very good dressmaker, and I've become a bit obsessed in the last 5 years with making clothes and upholstery and soft furnishings and wallpapering and patterns. And I think in another life, if I could do another career, I would definitely do something in that space, that creative space, which is really nice, I think, to have, because what I do is very different to that day to day. So it's nice to have that creative outlet. But yeah, I love Pattern Palace. So I'll flick to Janelle.
Janelle has frozen.
Yeah, I think maybe she has.
I think
Yes,
this is the Royals network at the
Oh.
moment because our network's not great. I
Okay.
feel she's definitely frozen. Well, why don't I go to Lisa instead?
Oh, hi, thank you. I think the one that stood out to me was a place of importance, and not that it's where I'm from in Ireland or anything like that, but it's a place of well-being. So I like to do a particular bushwalk with a friend, and it only takes 15 minutes to drive there, and you just feel like you are in the middle of nowhere, and you don't meet many people, and you get to see the sea as well. And I just love it. We call it our wellness walk. And just for that mindfulness and time out and a chat with a friend, yeah, that really stood out for me as a place of importance. So I'll throw to Travis.
Travis, can't hear you for some reason. Oh, isn't the virtual
Oh, can you
world
hear me now?
amazing? Yes, can.
Oh, weird. Yeah, so I'm the nurse manager for Essentials of Care at Vinnie's. And I'm the same as you, Lisa, picking a place of importance in that I recently bit the bullet and moved to our home in the Blue Mountains. And so I commute, which is, the train is not a place of importance, I'll tell you that much, but being in the Blue Mountains is pretty cool to be able to be out in a really open space away from Darlinghurst, which is quite nice as well, to be out in the bush. So yeah, that's pretty much me. I will throw to, I think, Kim. Yeah, Kim.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Sorry, I didn't have my camera on, so I'm just catching up with lunch. It's been a busy morning out on the road. So yes, I'm Kim, registered nurse with the transitional aged care team here at Prince of Wales. What jumps out for me is things to do to treat myself. As a mother of 2 teenagers and working full time, I find it a struggle to do things to feel, find the time to fill up my cup. And so I'm constantly having to remind myself that I have to do things to treat myself. And, and one of those things is to get out there on my paddleboard. And that really helps me fill up my cup. Yeah, and that's me. I'll just go back to eating my lunch if that's okay. I'll turn off the camera.
Thanks, Kim. Did you want to throw to somebody? Can you see the people up on the screen?
Sorry?
Did you want to throw to somebody to ask, invite somebody else
Oh,
to
yes,
share?
sorry. Yes.
Thanks.
I think that is everyone.
Is
Is
that
that everyone?
everybody?
Unless I can't,
Okay.
there's others I can't see.
Oh,
But
Janelle.
Great.
Janelle's popped in the chat. Or are you unfrozen?
I'm unfrozen
Oh, there
now.
we
I
go.
keep
Oh,
freezing and unfreezing. So I think maybe if I turn my camera off,
Okay.
it might give me a bit more bandwidth. So when I'm finished speaking, I'll turn it off, and that might help the situation. But something that might surprise you about me is that I've dabbled in a bit of cake decorating from time to time. Something my grandmother taught me some skills, and it's something I enjoy very much, like Sarah, in that creativity and doing that kind of thing. So yeah, I've made wedding cakes, and one that's taken me up to 40 hours. It was a 3-tier, very elaborate cake, but it's something I do from time to time, not as a business, but just for family and friends. I get a lot of joy out of being that creative.
Great, fantastic. Thanks. Yeah, if you feel like you need to turn off your camera, you
Yeah,
can
I think
do.
it might help. Yeah.
Like, it's just amazing, this virtual world, when it all works really well. But 9 times out of 10, there is all these little challenges that come up, isn't there? So yeah, do whatever you need to do.
I'll try that, but I'll be listening.
Okay, thanks, Janelle. Oh, thanks, everybody. Thanks for sharing. So like I say, that's a resource by Belinda Dewar that Louise is going to talk a little bit more about in a moment, about Belinda Dewar. But I just might ask you if there was anything that you noticed about, or if there was anything that you liked about that resource.
Yeah, I like that it's quite broad. It really gives you an opportunity to, you certainly wouldn't struggle for something to come up with. Something would have resonated with everyone. So I think that's always appealing with those, when you're going out to a broad group of people.
Thank you.
I think it's simple as well. It's not too complicated. Just nice little simple points that, that, like you said, you could just latch on to one of them.
Yeah, fantastic. Does it made anybody feel any different?
I think it made me laugh when Jules started rapping. And that wouldn't have happened. Yeah.
I'll regret that because I forgot we were recording.
I just feel like there's probably some other hidden talents that Jules has that we should keep doing this and see what else she can come up with.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, great, thanks. Yeah, Louise is I'm gonna throw to Louise in a moment, which she's going to say a little bit more about appreciative inquiry and what it's all about. So I don't really want to steal her thunder too much, but I will just say about this resource. It was lovely to hear from you all. There was lots of there was a few themes about well-being and creativity and just getting to know you all a little bit more. These tools of appreciative inquiry are all about the fact that people are in charge of what they want to share. So that's like when you said, you know, that you'll never have trouble with somebody being able to find something to say. That's because we're working with people rather than on people, which Louise is going to talk about a little bit more in a moment. And like I say, people can just choose whichever ones they like and say as much as they want and like uncover as much as they want about themselves, depending on how they feel. So that's one of the beauty of them, and that connection and just getting to know people as people a little bit more rather than just colleagues or people from across the district. Now I know a little bit more about you all, and especially a lot more about Jules. Right, throw to you, Lou, unless you've got anything else that you'd like to add about that.
Well, all good. Happy with the next slide, Jules. So some of you have been on these webinar series before, and some of you we know have caught up using the YouTube resource. So really this is just a quick overview, just as Ali touched on, really around appreciative inquiry and the crux of what it is. As you can see here, it's more than warm, fuzzy hugs. But really what it is looking at what matters to people, what works well, what do we care about, and how can we use those skilled conversations as a way of creating areas for development. And it's underpinned by a set of core principles which guide us really in using our appreciative lens in what we do. If we think about just an example of using that tool that we just used, we heard a lot around what matters to people. And it was fun, and we had a laugh around things that matter to each and every one of you. But what we ultimately heard is things that matter to you, whether it's in your free time or whether it's in your work environment. But those caring conversations enable us to connect on a more personal note and creates a little bit of understanding around each other. So if we just go to the next slide, that will just demonstrate the guiding principles. Get the grounding statements, if you like, of what we're trying to achieve in using our appreciative lens. What we focus on grows and expands. You know, we work in health. Often what happens is we focus on the deficits, focus on the areas that we can fix, or maybe things that aren't working so well. But really when we focus around what matters to us as teams, what we do well, how we can do it more of the time, it creates that energy and that shift in what we're working towards. We're experts of our own experience. You know, we just use that tool as well as an example, but we all get to hear where you're all coming from. Everyone comes from different backgrounds, has had different experiences around similar things. So how can we check in and connect with each other to be able to hear each other's experience and get to know each other on a deeper level? Curious questions are an action of themselves. That's why we're here today. So hopefully as we move through the webinar, we can show you guys some tools and some ways that we can really bring those curious questions to life. Even if it's just shifting a direction of a conversation so that it does move into a space where we want to focus on and understand each other. I mean, I won't labour through all of them, but you kind of will see the gist. Like, we can't change other people by changing ourselves. Others may respond differently. A huge part of that is around curiosity. When we find ourselves in those spaces where potentially we feel like we have hit a wall, or the changes that we're trying to implement and make aren't happening, and we're trying to engage people, and maybe we feel that people are just not getting it, but really, what can we do differently? What curious questions can we ask, maybe to shift a conversation which opens up the curiosity again? Stories, as we know, are a huge part of the soul of an organisation. How can we hear people's stories? What tools can we use? What techniques, what ways can we be within our workplace and in out of work, where we really get to hear people's stories and create that connection? Words create worlds. You know, that's a huge one. How we speak, things we say land differently with each of us. So how can we be more aware of that? How can we understand and use more of an appreciative language? And as Ali talked about before as well, we work with people rather than on people. So we're always trying to think of ways and try and look at ways where we're bringing people along for the journey, and we're not going into a space and telling people how to do things, but how can we do it together? And again, that sits in those important connections and understanding where people are coming from, especially when we're trying to create change. So just obviously going back to appreciative inquiry as well, I probably should just hit on the fact that it's a change methodology that really focuses on, as I said, the positives, what we're doing well. It originally came off of David Cooper back in the 80s. So if you look things up, or if you start to look online and things like that. However, we very much use an adapted style from Professor Belinda Dewar, who's from Scotland. And originally we connected with Belinda when she worked with the University of Western Scotland. And now she works independently, coming over across the pond to work with us continually as we try and sort of share and spread AI across the state, if you like. But Belinda has a wealth of experience in healthcare, and especially in aged care. And she's adapted a lot of the tools and the things that we use in order to really fit with how we work. So that's the what. And then if we just look at the how, if you just go into the next slide, a lot of you will have seen this. We use the caring conversations as that grounding framework of the how we demonstrate and connect that appreciative way of working. Belinda Dewar created this from extensive work in aged care and healthcare, conversations with staff, with patients, with families, around conversations that she had, and was able to create this framework. So everything that we do with our appreciative lens, we're trying to always use the caring conversations and connect on a deeper level. And with these webinars, what we're trying to show you is, as we use the tools, how they connect with the caring conversations and the grounding statements. So today, our focus is really on becoming curious, and curious questions are an action in themselves. So we thought about how can we use the caring conversations in order to demonstrate curiosity, because everything is curiosity around being appreciative, and we're trying to flex that curious muscle. And yes, as a muscle, we are not, we don't always have the same amount of curiosity. So how can we flex it and work on it? Which also helps our listening skills and connecting skills. So if we have a look, we thought it might be a nice idea where we really focus on curiosity and how curiosity is an action in itself, honing in on one of the C's, which might emphasize that curiosity, is considering other people's perspectives. So when we're really trying to consider other people's perspectives, and if we look at the strap line there, stretching our ideas about the people we could involve, the methods we might use to gather different perspectives and opinions, a huge part of that links with curiosity, which, as you can see above, is being committed to wondering and exploring with others. And it goes beyond collecting information and a quick quest for facts, because often when we're trying to implement change, I'm just using that as an example in our own context, maybe in what we do as for work, how do we consider other people's perspectives to enable that to be an engaging thing, to bring them along for the journey, to reduce that resistance that we might first initially encounter. So it takes a little bit of tapping into ourselves. So I thought maybe we could ask some curious questions of ourselves and you guys around how you might notch up considering other perspectives. So if you just flick to the next slide, Jules. So they've got some 3 curious questions here. And again, with anything in this way, you guys are in charge of what you share. Look at a question that maybe jumps out at you that you feel comfortable answering, but maybe take a minute to really think about what helps you when considering other people's perspectives, and notching up your curiosity. I'll give you a little minute, and then I'm happy to go first. What's jumping out at me is what might help me to stay listening when I want to go on talking. So that's a really good question I felt to ask of myself, because I think naturally sometimes, I suppose working in health, midwifery, nursing, all of that sort of stuff, you have a natural tendency to want to fix. I've had a lot of experience in working in education, so often it's about providing the information for people. So I've really had to think about what helps me to stay listening when I want to go on talking. And what has helped me is starting to connect with a physical feeling. So when people are sharing ideas or talking, or I almost feel this feeling of like it's almost like excitement, but I want to jump in because I want to share. And I'm just trying to connect with that physical feeling, because it's almost like okay, hold on, just wait a wee minute and let that person sort of continue talking and sharing, because then what it does is it helps me sort of develop that curiosity and fully hear their perspective, even if it might be a similar situation. So I'm just sort of taking the time to try and pause and connect with the physical feeling I get when I want to go on talking. I might throw that to you, Jules, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I was going to share that one, but I'm thinking because you did, I'll choose something different. I think what helps me to consider different views, I think it comes down to curiosity, and maybe a little bit of empathy, around wondering what's going on for that person or from that perspective. And I think the Caring Conversations has absolutely enabled me to notch that up. And I've also got a beautiful colleague who would often, the first question she would ask me if I was sharing, maybe a frustration or a situation to her, one of the first questions she would ask me is, where do you think they're coming from? And that's really, I think, helped. It's a bit like Lou's saying, curiosity is a muscle we need to flex. I think that's helped me flex that. I've noticed it actually, it's probably something that I've strengthened in recent times that, yeah, but it's taken a little bit of work around strengthening. But it's that conscious awareness of curiosity, I guess, what's going on here. Am I shouting out to someone else?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Hi, Andrew. Welcome. Will I throw to you? Do you want to have a go?
Sure.
Just thinking because you missed the intro.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I was late.
Don't apologise. Nice to see you back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm going to go with the other one. So how do I feel about exploring alternatives when I'm certain I am right and already know the answer? And I find that challenging. I've done a couple of coaching courses, which I found was really helpful in helping me avoid that reflex to, jump in with my own input and the sort of knowledge that I, think is right, and to be a little bit more patient with listening. But we do this from, a caring perspective where we're all carers, and we want to jump in with what we think is what is helpful, but avoiding that reflex and just being patient, and allowing alternatives to come out. Sometimes changes your perspective on what turns out to be the right answer.
Thanks, Andrew. Do you want to throw to someone else? Can you see the...
Lisa?
Oh, hi, thanks. I started off thinking about the listening one first of all, because that for me that was just a really easy one. And I think in the last few years, and it takes training as well, and it's just having those conversations and just getting kind of physically comfortable having that conversation and not and kind of fighting that natural urge to get in and fix and get on top of the conversation. So it takes a lot of training, but I feel I'm getting there. And just the amount more that people share when you give them the space to do it, I think is really incredible. So I think in the last few years I found that most helpful. But the others two are equally yeah, what helps you consider different views and what are people's motivations. And I think the hardest one I thought was the last one, and that's why I think I avoided it. And yeah, I think consulting and being open-minded and chatting with the people you trust, and but also people that challenge you as well, and knowing that, trying to again fight that kind of natural impulse to kind of think, oh, I have the answer, I know what to do here, but also just listening and absorbing all of the information. So I'd like to throw to Cynthia.
Cynthia, I'm not sure if I could. Oh, Cynthia's typed hers in there. What helps me to stay listening when I want to keep talking? I've recognised that a lot of what I say involves an intent to say to the other person, I hear you and I understand you. It's ironic that I feel the urge to jump in and interrupt in order to convey that. I'm in telehealth office, so can't currently talk. Okay, yep, thanks for that, Cynthia. And I'm not sure if I'm correct in saying, but I think that really resonates as well with that kind of caring side, especially working in health, that kind of feeling of wanting to make sure that people are heard and cared for and nurtured. And it's interesting that it's a common thing for us as well. I don't know if you heard it. I sort of felt a similar way as well. Yeah. I might just jump to you, Sarah, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think the one about staying listening when I want to go and talk, I think because I get asked a lot of very direct questions, a lot of my counselling is people asking very specific, direct questions. So it encourages that back, forth. They ask, I impart information, they ask. So that sort of pattern of talking it's trained me almost to jump in sometimes. So I've had to, in other scenarios when it is more of a counselling session, it's really just letting that flow happen. And I realize even though my brain is wanting to ask more questions or perhaps give little updates on whatever the question is, just letting the mum flow. So particularly when I'm working with mums who are really sleep deprived and struggling at times and emotional, interrupting just ruins the whole flow of their train of thought. And so just letting them tell that whole story, and whatever tangent it goes off and then comes back and then goes off. And then when I feel like it's coming to a natural point, then starting to talk about some of the things that have been raised. But I really had to check myself a few times wanting to just interject just little tidbits as we go, because I realize it just throws her thinking. So I think that's been a good lesson for me, just to sit back and just wait and listen. So yeah, I think for me that's been a big change in sometimes how I've worked in the past.
And it really highlights what Lisa said around the importance of creating space and holding space, but also goes back to that element of pausing. So there's something in that pausing that is helping us to be able to not jump in and hold back. Yeah. And it's heightening that curiosity or opportunities for curiosity.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to throw to?
Travis.
Thanks, Sarah. So bit like Andrew, how do I feel about exploring alternatives when I'm certain I'm right or already know the answer? A lot of my work gets given to me based off identified problems by stream managers or big bosses that say, Trav, this is a problem, we need you to go fix it. And with a sort of leadership lens, essentials of care lens to it, which is challenging when I know what the answer, I know what the problem is, I know what the managers want, but this is a good one for me to think about all the time because we're never going to get the answer right if we don't stop and explore the alternatives with the staff that are contributing or the staff that are involved. So when I look there on the left, it says becoming curious, being committed to wondering and exploring with others. And this is important for me to remember, going beyond collecting information on a quick quest for the facts, because often I find that I need to give a result to the people that want the result, but I'm not considering the team members. So it's hard to do that when I've got different pressures, but it's so worthwhile to really stop and be curious with those staff, to develop an action plan with them and not me develop it and send it to them, if that makes sense. This is quite useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, like when you have those kind of people around you that want a certain result and potentially already think they know the right answer. So then it's how do we explore the alternatives? And I love how you brought in the becoming curious again. And it's more of it's more than a quest for facts. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to share?
Yes, for me, the question, what helps me consider different views? I find that if we're able to put ourselves in the person's shoes, we can actually help them validate, their feeling. Like it's easy to validate, a person's feelings so then we're able to see them in a different view. Like I work a lot with carers, and sometimes we find there's a lot of carer stress. And so when that person in front of me is very stressed, I kind of like, oh gosh, they really need, help. But at the end of the day, what they really need is their feelings to be validated and to be acknowledged. And I find myself, in front of this person and thinking, okay, how do I help them? So by understanding where they're coming from, understanding their views, then in return, I can kind of validate their feelings, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And even that curious question within that space, maybe how can I help you?
Yeah. Afterwards, yeah.
Because the other thing I'm just thinking is when you're sharing that, which is fantastic, is around unless we ask the questions, unless we kind of go deeper, then we can only assume or make assumptions based on our own experiences and sort of maybe how we would feel. And it is that quest for more information and getting to understand what matters to people on a deeper level that really helps us to be curious from an appreciative lens. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Faye. Sorry.
So, does anybody else want to share around these questions? I'm just conscious of time, so we are going to go on to another number of questions for you guys that will take us to the end of the webinar. But I'm just, if anybody wants to put anything into the chat box and wants to add anything around becoming curious or considering other perspectives in these questions, feel free. But thank you guys for sharing. And I'm just wondering what you thought of those questions and kind of what stood out for you within that.
I find they're very good for prompts to reflect on things. I've actually taken a snip of it so that I can print out to remind me when I'm in, difficult situations. Yeah, I think these questions really help me stop and think about what I'm doing. And like you say, to help me ask questions and to be more curious. yes, I find that very helpful. I find these 3 questions very helpful in that way.
That's great. And I love that you said that it helps you, because it's about that internal reflection and those curious questions of ourselves.
Yeah,
Because often we find ourselves in this space asking curious questions of others. But if we can really connect with the caring conversations within ourselves, and that sort of develop that muscle of curiosity within ourselves as well, it helps us to sort of, I guess, do it outwardly. And it's really interesting, because these questions, when do we ever ask them of ourselves, I wonder. Do you guys want to add anything, Jules or Ali, before we go into the next part?
Just Janelle's popped in the chat.
Oh.
She's still struggling, I think, with the bandwidth maybe, but and I'm not sure if it's in response to what helps me to stay listening or what helps me consider different views, but she's just shared she finds it helpful to have a phrase such as, "That's interesting. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you were feeling?" Love that.
Mm-hmm. And that's
But
almost
just bringing that curiosity in. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, it's almost like a prompt to self, because when you ask that phrase, there's an element of pausing in that too, you know. All right, if we just go on to the next slide. So again, adding to that curiosity around the caring conversations, and really this is around as well, hopefully for those of you who've followed us through the last 5, and this is number 6, or who've watched online and have been familiar with some of this work, because we've met a few of you sort of in the non-virtual world as well. We thought maybe if you have a look at the C's, and we'll do a sort of quick round around which C you feel you do well, and share why. And as we move forward and sort of come to the end of the webinar, what you're thinking around a C that you would like to notch up, and how you feel you may or may not, you may explore this, you may not know this yet, but it's just an opportunity to share, because we know when we say things out loud, they tend to happen more of the time. So if you have a look, I'll give you a minute or so, and then I'm happy to share first. I think for me, a C that I do well is collaborating. I really try to create, like it says in the strapline, a sense of being together. I do really believe that we work best together, and involving as many people in that space as I can. And the reason I think I do it well is because I really try and reach out to everyone who I think may be involved, and always leave it open for anyone who wants to be involved. And another way that I think I do that quite well is language. I'm very aware of sort of words creating worlds, and I'm always conscious of sort of using inclusive language and we and us, and how can we move forward. And I think that's something that I really strive to do well, is collaborating, especially in a district role when you're trying to engage lots of different people, and lots of different things that they may not really sort of be contemplating yet. And a big part of my role might be trying to introduce them to that idea. So I try and really collaborate well if I can. Which C would I like to notch up is probably compromising. And I think that comes back to probably developing my curiosity and considering other perspectives. As you can see, they kind of all overlap, but my compromising sometimes doesn't happen or go so well when maybe I'm still in a space where I think I'm right, and maybe I haven't considered all of the perspectives of the options. So how I might explore that is maybe thinking of some more curious questions. Like you said, Janelle, maybe sort of sitting and kind of pausing and maybe asking more questions around something when I feel like I'm getting to that space where I don't want to compromise. I'll just throw that over to you guys, Jules, Ali.
You go now or me?
It's up to you. Do you want to? You go, Jules. I'll go.
I think what I do well, I think I just shared on that previous screen. I think I've noticed of late, I've had a number of conversations where I've brought in other people's perspectives and used a questioning around considering what the perspective of others is. And so I think that's something I can do well. Absolutely the same as Louise. One thing I've really noticed of late is that compromising is something I definitely need to develop further. I'm very happy to compromise when I'm not too invested in something, but if it's something I feel really strongly about, or it's something that threatens the integrity of something I feel strongly about, I've noticed that I have a tendency to dig my heels in. And be absolutely inflexible. So I think what I've realised in those situations, Lou's laughing because she's seen it probably. I think in those situations, what I've realised is that I tend to go into shutdown because I feel unheard. And what I've realised that to bring me out of that, I have to bring curiosity to understand and ask about the person's understanding of it or what their ideas are, which I think I failed to get curious because I just go into stubborn. That's something I'm definitely working on. Al, do you want to have a go?
Okay, yeah, I will. Thanks, Jules. The more I look at these and I can and the more I kind of unpack them and kind of relate them to me, I can see how they kind of all overlap and they're just, yeah, they all kind of like gel together in some kind of shape or form, don't they? And I was thinking about, how I feel like it's a work in progress and you're evolving and learning as you go, but I think that I've become better at becoming curious, and that's in my curious questions, because I think I really am really interested and really want to consider other people's perspectives, and because I am actually really interested to hear that what everybody has to say, and it blows my mind that everybody sees things through different kind of a lens. So I think as well that kind of leads me into the one that I kind of would like to notch up is becoming courageous. I think sometimes I can hold myself back because I feel, I don't know, for whatever reason, I can't ask the questions or whatever. But I think, and as the strapline says there, reminding ourselves of what we do know or feel solid to support us in situations that feel uneasy or unknown is, I suppose, thinking that my questions then come from a good place, that they're coming from a place that I would like to know, or, or they're purposeful, and I think if I'm not feeling courageous and I don't want to ask something, if I kind of link that and with myself, then that will help me to become courageous. Would anybody else like to go? I'm just looking at the time, it's 3:23, so there's a few coming up in the chat, isn't there? Does anybody want to take themselves off mute and have a go? Have a share?
Give it a go. For me, it's definitely like Louise, the collaborating is easy for me. I find it comes naturally because I've always been, a team player, and I believe that working together, you will always get a better outcome. More brains is more, more different options that comes out of things. So I find that, for me, it just comes naturally. But, like Alison said, for me, courageous is a difficult one. I think because I have, sometimes I doubt myself. And so it's hard to be courageous when you have doubts. So I think that's something that I'd have to work on, actually becoming more courageous and asking questions around that.
Thank you. And I'm just seeing some coming into the chat box there as well. So Lisa, you mentioned you do well, you connecting emotionally, and what you'd like to notch up would be becoming courageous, sorry. And then Jules has just thrown in a curious question there. Is there anything that would help you become more courageous? I won't put you on the spot with that. You can put that in the chat box if you want. Cynthia, I think I consider other perspective as well as I try to understand why things happen, and would like to notch up becoming courageous, as you can be cautious at times. Sarah, you've said there you do well considering perspectives and working with people from all different backgrounds and experience. And you're working on being courageous this year and getting out of your comfort zone to grow. I love that, because being out of the comfort zone, more than anything, really does help us grow. But we kind of, there's safety in a comfort zone, right? And just sharing my own experience, a lot of the work around appreciative inquiry and that stretching of self has really helped bring me out of a comfort zone with facilitation, with learning, but more than anything, self-reflection. But what I've noticed is the only thing that comes from it is growth. So yeah. Anybody else want to share a C? Ideally, we would have kind of been able to go around everybody, but we're conscious that we're coming to the end. I don't want to eat up too much of your time, but feel free to jump in and share.
I love that one from you, Travis, about celebrating when people do things well, because I agree. I think in health, we're not great at that. And I noticed today, even one of the students said something when we were talking about a couple on the board, and she gave great insight, more insight than I had on the situation. And yeah, I made a point of letting her know that was really great input, and you could see her face respond to that. And I think often with students, they can feel a little bit outside of the team. So I wanted her to know that that was, she came with experience around this sort of mental health condition that I didn't have, and that gave us, a good opportunity to see things a bit differently. So yeah, it made me really think I should do that more often, which I'm trying to do anyway, but it's just those little things that can make a difference.
Yeah, and it's meaningful stuff that it's immediate feedback. I did a session for something called Accelerate Plus, and one of the staff members said to me, when are we going to get some good feedback? And you could just feel the vibe in the room was all they get is negative. And practice won't change when you're brewing this sort of negative environment, which, for the past couple of years, we've all been under a lot of pressure. So it's a different way to approach it, which I think appreciative inquiry really helps with that. I'm just really obsessed with it at the moment because I really think it's got some good value.
And it absolutely aligns with the grounding statement of what you focus on grows and expands. If we're constantly focusing on the negatives and what people aren't doing well, then we're sitting in that space and we keep finding more of those things. But if you start appreciative noticing all those things that are working well, and you provide that feedback, then we keep noticing more and more. It actually, resets those neural pathways that enables us to see and appreciate and notice more. So I love that. Thanks for sharing, Sarah and Trav.
Thank you very much, guys. I'm just quickly curious as to if this was helpful around notching up that curiosity, and what you've thought about sort of actually tapping into the caring conversations more explicitly using the C's. If anyone had any feedback around that, what you thought and what you liked about those rounds. Anyone quickly wants to jump in, so we know that was useful.
I thought it was really good to reflect on what you thought you were doing well and things that you want to improve upon. So yeah, definitely, I want to print that out in color and have it in front of me and keep looking at it.
That's great.
Yeah, I think it's really like you get so bogged down in the day-to-day tasks that this just is really great for reflective practice. It opens up so many possibilities and ways of thinking about things, lifting you out of the day-to-day.
When I first got introduced to this framework, I actually started using it as my own reflection. And then I kind of, like you just said, it's really good for self-reflection. And then it helps you to bring it into what you do on a daily basis. Yeah, thank you very much. I'll just, what did you say, Jules? Step into a well? How is everybody for time? Does everybody have 5 minutes? Yeah. Okay, cool.
I have to leave if that's okay. I've got a meeting at 3:30.
No worries. No worries.
Thank-
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
thanks for
That
sharing.
was really great.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so just to kind of close the session today and talk like Jules was just saying about how, you know, what we focus on grows and expands, and a bit of kind of what Travis and Sarah was saying, that often it's about this appreciative noticing and giving feedback kind of in the moment, or feedback when we can in this appreciative way. And sometimes, you know, that could be something that we don't tend to do so much, but this is a resource called The Well, and it came about from Safety Huddles. It's a Belinda Dewar tool, like all of our resources that we're using. And when they kind of introduced some safety huddles, they wanted to kind of find out what worked well. So they asked, you know, well, what was working well? And people found it hard to kind of articulate what it was that was working well with the safety huddles. So this resource helps with this, trying to notice the little things, because the more that we notice even just those small things, which can get into bigger ripples, you know, of greatness, and the more that we kind of like focus on of these, then the better it is. So this is called The Well because it's what went well and when. So it helps you to articulate some of those things, and we did it with. So I'd like you to have a think about what went well in the session today. So what went well in the session and when, and we did it with. So for me, what went well in the session today was, I think, let me have a look. I think stories were shared. And that was really when we were talking about the C's. And I think that we did that with, I think we did it with grace, which is up there, but I also think we did it with vulnerability. And I think we also did it with honesty and openness as well. So thank you. Louise or Jules, would you like to jump in?
I'm happy to jump in. I think what went well was new information was learned for me when other people were sharing. So I think for me, Trav, when you shared something around bringing curiosity in and you read the strapline out, even though I'm very comfortable and familiar with the caring conversations, it really prompted something within me about trying to move on too quickly and trying to get information really quickly. And that made me really pause for a moment and consider my actions and what I can shift. And I think just it's that sharing that constantly enables me to learn new information and make connections for me. And I think we did it with generosity. There was so much generosity in you guys sharing in the space today that really helped my experience too.
What went well was when, I think actually when we were doing the opening round, and it sort of demonstrated to me just the importance of bringing each other into that space. And it was when laughs were had, and that was when Jules shared the rapping hidden talent, because I was actually there when we discovered that talent. Well, when I discovered the talent, I think I'm sure you knew it was always there, Jules. But yeah, and I loved the fact that there was lots of laughter and sort of brought us into the space. And I think that was actually done. We did it with ease. I think it kind of was quite natural the way that kind of came. Yeah, and it always will make me laugh. Anyone else want to give the tool a go?
I'll have a go. I think the flow was really good. I think it flowed really well, the session. And I think everyone did it with thoughtfulness. I think people put thought into it and came up with something individual.
Thank you. So I suppose with the essence, like we could keep going, couldn't we? Because it's just been so great. But time is 3:35. So maybe we'll just move on to the next slide, Jules.
Sorry, just before I do, thanks,
Yeah,
Janelle.
I can see some people popping into the
communication was smooth for everyone else. Yeah, sorry about that. Perspectives were sought and it was done respectfully. Love that. Thank you. Feel free to keep popping it in. Oh, vulnerability was shown. We did it with heart. Oh, love it. Thanks. All right.
Thanks. So our evaluation's just up there on the screen. We really do value your feedback. Like I said, this is the 6th one. We've got one more left to go, which will be on the 9th of May, where it will be around one of the other grounding statements. We work with people rather than on people, which is one of the ones that I really love. I mean, I love them all, but I love that one. So just 4 little questions in the evaluation there. If you've got a couple of minutes to complete, that would be awesome.
And I guess just while we're doing that, I'm just curious if anybody wants to sort of share with us, whether it's in the chat box or email, what you liked about the well. It's a fairly newish tool that we've been using, but really keen to hear your thoughts around how you might want to use it, how you feel you could use it in your own work. You know, as Ali said initially, it kind of came out of a safety huddle, where when people were talking about what was working well, people found it hard to articulate. So I'm just curious as to know what your thoughts are around the tool, and how you see you could use it in your own context.
When you've done, we'll let you go. We can email you the QR code just so that you don't have to hang on to scan that. So if you do want to access the other webinars, we can just we can probably pop a link to it in the chat box. And if I can't do that, I'll email it to you, just so you don't have to hang on to scan that QR code as well. But we hope to see you all on the 9th of May. Thank you so much for showing up today and all your beautiful, generous sharing.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Apologies we went over, but really grateful for everything you shared.
Yeah, I'm actually really grateful the fact that no one was rushing off, which is lovely for us. We wanted to stay with us, which is nice.
It's the generosity.
Thank you. It was great.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a
Thank you.
wonderful
Goodbye.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.